Hello, Salamastar bu. Hello everybody again. Welcome to our regular session with Pamela. Pamela is going to talk about differentiated learning in the classroom. So, welcome Pamela.
Thank you.
You can
Okay.
start.
Yeah, I'll start sharing my screen. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. And so we're going to talk today. So I got the question about helping weak students. So what that really means is if there are students in your class that are generally weaker than what the rest of the students are, or what the class level is really supposed to be, or what the curriculum is asking of them. So we're talking really about the multi-level classroom or differentiated learning. So that the multi-level classroom describes how the class is set up. Like what does the class constitute? It has people of different levels. And differentiated learning is a way to teach different levels. So I'm calling this one the multi-level classroom. It can also be called, methods of differentiated learning. So it's basically addressing the needs of students that are at different levels to make sure that the highest levels are not bored and that they are learning. They're not just at the maintenance level, they're at the growth level. And also to make sure that the lowest level students are also learning, because if they are in too high a level of class and you don't accommodate them, then they also won't learn, because everything will be too far over their heads, will be too much for them to really get in your class. So we're looking to reach all students and push them out of their comfort zone. So I have a whole, as we were talking about with soft skills, there's a whole concept of anything you do, leaving your comfort zone of what is most comfortable for you. And that's where the real growth happens. And so this is where we want to be with our multi-level classrooms, make sure everybody is just outside of what they really can do, and you're pushing them. So even the highest level ones, you want to make sure that you're pushing them a little bit. And the lowest level ones, you want to make sure they're being pushed at the right level, just outside of their comfort zone, not pushed too hard where they can't get anything out of the assignments because it's too hard. Okay, so if we're talking about who makes up a multi-level classroom, so if we were in, I think the last time I gave this workshop, we were in an actual classroom together. So I would have everybody discuss and give some answers, but you can just kind of think about this for yourself for a minute before I go on. Think about when you've had a multi-level classroom. What did that mean? What did that look like? And why was it challenging? So let's talk about the different types of levels that you'll have in the class for a foreign language class. So you'll have the symmetrically skilled. So this means that if somebody is at a beginner, an intermediate, a high intermediate, a low advanced, an advanced, a high advanced, whatever that however you categorize them, that all of their skills, all of the 4 skills will be pretty much at the same level. So if they are at absolute beginner, well, absolute beginner is easier. If they're at absolute beginner for reading, they will also be there for speaking, writing, listening. So all of the skills will be symmetric. They will be equal. It means, and this happens at any level also. You can have somebody advanced where they're writing, they're speaking, they're listening, and they're reading are all at the same level. Asymmetrically skilled, this is more common, especially in intermediate, means that maybe they are performing better in certain skills and lower in other skills. So maybe this is very common as well. The reading is really strong, but the writing is very low. The listening is very strong. The speaking is very low. Or maybe the speaking and listening are very, very strong, and the writing and reading are very low. So that means asymmetrically skilled. So you want to keep this in mind when you're doing any of these activities and when you're addressing multi-level learners and you're conducting differentiated learning activities, that you'll need to treat the same student in like different ways depending on where their skills lie. Also, you will want to account for personality. So certain people are shy and certain ones are outgoing. And we know this affects a lot. So I know that I've had students that they were not shy. They didn't care about making mistakes. They didn't care if what they said was right or wrong. They just wanted to answer every question. And they weren't necessarily the most skilled student in the class, but they were so outgoing and they were so, personable and energetic and social that they really, they got a lot of speaking practice. And maybe they weren't the highest level speaker, but they were always engaging with class. You will also find ones that are more shy because of that. If they are afraid of making mistakes, they don't want to say the wrong thing. And so even if they are mid-intermediate, they will still not talk as much, because if they're not absolutely sure of that their answer is right, then they won't want to say it. And how do you assess this? So again, if we were in person, I would have a discussion and like kind of a back and forth question. But the way that you would assess this is before you start any of your differentiated learning activities or methods, you will have to wait to find out where people really are. So you will have a combination of formal and informal testing and assessment to really find out where your students are. Sometimes you get an intermediate class that is all intermediate, and that is like the perfect example, right? That's the perfect world, the ideal. But most of the time we get a mix. What I found is we get a couple of very low, a couple of very high, and then a couple of truly intermediate. So intermediate is the hardest one to teach, and the one that has the most multi-level challenges. Because if you have tested into advanced, you might have some intermediate students in there, but you're not going to have beginners. If you are testing into beginner, you might have some intermediate that are maybe not great test takers, but you're not going to have any advanced. But in intermediate, you will have all three, and you'll have a bunch of different levels of them, and you will have the asymmetrically skilled. And sometimes you will have a class that it seems like they are all the levels are kind of lower than the level you're teaching. And then, of course, this is the most fun one, though. I've also had classes that everybody came in and it turned out they were all a higher level than what the curriculum was made for. And that's when you can have a lot of fun, because they're so highly skilled and they're so eager to improve their languages that you can really push them. So you'll take a while. Informally means that you are just watching, listening, getting to know them, not, like just paying attention when they're talking in class, just paying attention to the homework, just interacting and kind of understanding what level they are, and taking notes on that and remarking on that and keeping that in mind as you put them into different groups or give different assignments for differentiated learning. Formally means that you actually administer a test. So informal, they don't know they're being assessed. Formal, they know they're being assessed. So both have their advantages and disadvantages, right? So for the formal assessment, the advantage is that everything is standardized. So everybody is being tested on the same exact thing. And they have a chance to study and prepare, and you can really see, like, what they can do and what they can't. The disadvantage for that is that people get nervous, and that might affect their test performance. And maybe you're not really seeing how strong they are in English just because of nerves. Informal assessment shows how they use the language, and really what they can do in a very relaxed, like they're not nervous, obviously, because they're just in class, like interacting with you, interacting with their friends. The disadvantage is it's not as standardized, and maybe you're not able to give as much time to everybody. You can just kind of notice what you notice. And if some students are more shy, then you might not get as much information from them. And if the ones that are more outgoing are always talking and always taking taking that time and taking the time from the other students, then you'll be paying more attention to them. But you definitely want more. You definitely want both. You want, more, I would say more of the informal, because that's where you're going to spend most of your time. You're going to spend most of your time doing classroom exercises and classroom activities, and less of the time on formal tests. So we want to mix up the groups in our classes in order to address different students' needs and different students' levels. So why would we mix up the groups, and how would we mix them up? So again, we would have some discussion, and I think some of you have already taken this, so hopefully some of this is looking a little bit familiar. If not, these are always a great refreshers. I take the same professional development workshop several times myself, because it takes a while to have everything sink in. But let's move on. So we will want to mix the strong with the weak, the strong with the strong, the weak with the weak, the shy with the shy, and we will want to challenge everybody's comfort zone. So what we will do is we will find out who the strong students are and who the weak ones are. And sometimes you'll want to mix the strong with the weak, so that the weak ones can learn from the strong ones. So this you don't want to do all the time, because what we found is that the weak ones benefit a lot more than the strong ones do. That if the strong ones are just constantly helping explain things to the weak ones, then they're not really learning themselves. But the weak ones are getting the information explained to them by a peer. They're getting that like one-on-one attention that, if you're doing group work with a class, it's more beneficial to have the students pair off and do that kind of work with each other than it is for you to explain something to the weak student and everybody else is like bored. So this is a positive thing to do once in a while, that you will put a strong student with a weak one and say, you guys work together, you explain it to them, and then they will get some practice. Pairing the strong with the strong is really good because they will push each other. So, and they're also, if both of them are very outgoing and they are very, they all talkative, then one person won't dominate the other one. So they will like kind of be equal that way, and they will push each other. They will get through things quicker, and then you will have extensive exercises for them to do. We'll get to that a little later. But pair the strong with the strong sometimes as well. So when only the strongs are the strong and with the weaks are with the weaks, we don't get the benefit of the strong with the weak. That's why you want to mix it up a lot. You want to have people working with different people all the time so that you get the benefit throughout the semester. The weak with the weak, it's the same thing. They will push each other to try to figure out the language themselves, and they won't have a strong one just give the answers. This is another problem sometimes with pairing a strong with a weak, is that sometimes the stronger one doesn't know how to elicit an answer, and they will just give an answer. But if they're both weaker and they're both, curious and not quite as familiar with the levels and with what is being asked of them, then they will push each other, and they will, have the opportunity to really find out what the answers are and what they are supposed to do and what the structures are of the phrases and grammar structures and everything. So that's also a good thing to do. So the days that you put the strong with the strong, you put the weak with the weak. Works out. Put the shy students with the shy students. So this can be either strong with strong, weak with weak, or strong with weak, because there are stronger ones that are shy also, where every time you call on them, they have the right answer. Their writing is good. They just don't want to talk in class as much. So if you put two shy students together, nobody is going to dominate someone else. They will both be equally shy together, and they just make sure that they are talking to each other and not just sitting in silence. So you'll have to monitor. Of course, you monitor with all of these. But this will push them to somebody, take a little bit more of a leadership role, maybe. And you want to challenge their comfort zone. So this is, the comfort zone is what we're talking about, making them, pushing them and challenging them. So you want them to be 80% comfortable and 20% out of their comfort zone. If you push them too much out of the comfort zone, like you say, okay, well, why don't we have the shyest person in the class come and give a presentation tomorrow in front of the whole class? And it has to be 20 minutes long. Like, that's way out of the comfort zone, right? If you put a very, very strong person and say, oh, only let the other person talk the entire time. Well, that's going to be very uncomfortable for them too, because they want to communicate and they want to express themselves and they like to talk. So keep that in mind of not pushing too far anytime you're giving an assignment. So how do we mix it up? How do we find different ways to have students mix and work with each other, so that they are getting exposed to working with different kinds of students? So you can do pair work. As I mentioned, you can put one strong student with one other strong student, or one strong student with one other weak student. If you're going to do the strong with the weak, pair work works the best. One strong and one weak. If you put 3 strong and 1 weak, the weak one's going to get lost. If you put 3 weak with 1 strong, the 1 strong is probably going to do all the work. So pair work is probably best for that. You can do small groups. You can do 2 big groups. You can assign roles to each student for certain projects. You can have them choose the roles they want to do for projects. So you can have a small group with all the weak students. You can have a small group with all the strong students. I find this is actually the best one for group work, because again, there's no one person like dominating anything. 2 big groups is one half of the class and the other half of the class. This is good for debates and things. It's quite rare, but it can be done. And then when they're in the groups, yeah, you can either assign the roles, say you are the time taker, you are the writer, you are the idea maker, you are the presenter. Or you can have them decide on the roles. The older they are, the better it is for them to decide. And make sure it's timed, because they can spend all class saying, like, deciding, and say, oh, we're still deciding. You say, okay, 5 minutes, you guys talk about it, you decide. Who is going to be the one to write the ideas down, and who's going to be the one to say the ideas, and who, whatever the artist or the researcher, whatever the project is that you're doing. And you can have a project just for that day, or you can have a project that goes over a couple weeks or like a month, like what we've done for English Week, where you are leading up to a big project for English Week. Circuit speed dating. So this is where you have a circle in class, and then you have another smaller circle made up of the students. And you have the students facing each other, and they are talking. And then when you go on the 2-minute, you like take 2 minutes you put 2 minutes on the timer, give them 2 minutes. And then after the 2 minutes is done, the circle on the inside goes to the right. And now they are talking to the next person in the circle. Then they talk for 2 minutes and then you go to again. The students love this. I love this when I do this in class, when I'm in foreign language classes, because you get to talk to everybody in the class. So you can either put all of the weak students on one, in the circle, or all of or you can mix them up. So that's a really fun thing to do. And you don't just tell them like talk, but you have certain questions that you're supposed to go through. And you can put them on the board so they can refer to it. They can, ask certain things. It can be a role play, like pretend you're at a hospital. And then as you change, like pretend you're at a store, pretend you're at a restaurant, pretend you're a mother talking to their son, any of those things. But that's a really fun one to do. And then everybody gets to talk to another level. It's all mixed up there. Okay, so how do we create groups for working together in the class? So there are different methods to either mix everybody up so that everybody's working with different levels, or to on purpose make, put the strong ones with the strong and the weak ones with the weak. But if you want it to be mixed up all the time, and also the students won't be like, oh, well, I wanted to be with this person or whatever. You're like, no, the teacher decides this is how you do it. So we want to expose them to a variety of levels and experiences with fellow students. So you don't ever want to just have your class be this person sits next to this person every day, and all they do is work with that one person. They're getting way too used to just that person. They need more variety of experiences with different people. So, for example, I remember when I was in China and I was spending a lot of time with my roommate, and she was Japanese. I didn't speak any Japanese and she didn't speak any English. So the only language we had together was Chinese. We were at a similar level. So it was great to really be able to push myself to communicate in that language with that person, because I knew it was the only way that I could get my point across, or I could get the information I needed. And also, it wasn't like I was with a Chinese person who wouldn't know my level and who maybe would say things that I didn't understand and I'd get frustrated or something. So it was really good for me. But the thing is that I was spending so much time talking with her and maybe not enough time with people of different levels and experience with the language, that when I would be in a situation where I needed to have very strong Chinese, I would actually sit and think, okay, well, how would I say this to Miyuki? I would have to go through that in my mind because I was interacting with her like the most. And so we don't want to do that with our students. We want to have them feel like they're comfortable with expressing themselves to anybody and communicating with anybody at all, not just like, oh, well, how would I say it with this person, or what, how would, if I'm hearing this, would it sound differently if Miyuki was saying it, right? So we want to really expose them to a lot of different voices, different cadences, different levels of the language, so that it's not filtered through communicating to one particular person. And you want to have them hear different voices and hear different rhythms of speech, so that it's not like another person is going to sound very foreign to them. Make sure you don't do the same thing every day. So again, like I said, like they can come in and choose their seats, and of course they might sit next to their friend, and maybe you can keep them there for introduction and for homework check and everything. But then mix it up. Then you make it so that they are working in different kinds of pairs or different kinds of groups. So what you can do is count off. So if you want 4 groups, for example, you will have them count off. So the first person says 1, the second one 2, the third one 3, 4, and then you start again. And then the next student is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, and then say all the 1s go to this corner. All the 2s go to this corner. All the 3s go to this corner. All the 4s. And then it's going to be completely mixed up based on level, because it's not who their friends are. It's not who they are comfortable with. It's just based on the number. If you want 7 groups because you have a large class and you want like 3 in each group or something, you can count off by 7s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right. This one's kind of fun also, and then they get a candy out of it. And you do this once in a while because otherwise it can be kind of expensive, but you can have color-coded candies. Again, if you have 4 different colors of candy wrappers or different types of candies, I think they did this with Peace Corps with us before. And then you hand them out and then say, okay, all the orange, come over here. Okay, all the green, come over here. All the red, all the purple. And again, it's very random. It's not by any design. You can arrange everybody by height. Say, okay, the tallest over here, and then all the way to the shortest down here. Or a birthday. Who has the earliest birthday? January 1st to December 31st. Or alphabetical order. Your first name starts with A all the way to Z or Z. And this is also a great thing to do. I really like this one because they have to talk to each other, and you have to tell them you can only use English. Right? You can't use Kyrgyz or Russian to communicate with each other. You have to talk to each other in English to figure out whose birthday. When were you born? When is your birthday? My birthday is January 15th, right? My birthday is October 9th, right? All of those things. Or, you know, they are comparing, how tall are you? I'm taller. No, he is taller. Is someone taller than him? And make sure that, you know, monitor and say, oh, no Kyrgyz, English only, right? Alphabetical order is a little easier because everybody knows their name. But those things are a fun activity to do as kind of a warm-up. And then you can say, okay, the first 4 at the end here, you're a group. Second 4, you're a group together. Third, you're a group. And then now, again, it's random. They're working with people at different levels. 4 corners, that's a debate, kind of a critical thinking one. This is really good for older students. So this is, you have a sign in each corner of the room, and the sign says strongly agree. Another sign says agree. Another sign says strongly disagree. And another sign says disagree. And you say something, a statement about politics or social issues or pop culture, something about opinions. And then they have to say whether they agree, disagree, strongly agree, or strongly disagree. And then you do that a couple times, and then students will move around the classroom. And then you can either wait until, it's usually maybe like 3 times that you'll have like a little bit of discussion to begin with. And you'll say, like, well, why, can you tell me why you think this? Why are you in disagree versus strongly disagree? Or why are you in strongly agree versus agree? You know, what makes you think this? What are your reasons? And then they can answer with, you know, expressing themselves about whatever their answer is. And then if the last one that you do, maybe 3 or 4 statements, and you've discussed a little bit, is kind of even, then that's great. Then you can say, okay, these are your groups. Now you have an assignment. So now it's based on opinions. It's not based on skill, and it's not quite random, but it's like, it's random for skills, but it's based on some kind of commonality within them. Or if it's like almost nobody in one corner and then another corner is very like full, you can say, okay, 3 of you go over here. Okay, now these are your groups. And then now you have 4 equal groups that they can work with. You can also, this is, it takes a lot of care and it takes a lot of paying attention, and it takes some time also. It takes time from when you first meet them to when you do this. And it also takes time to do, because you have to really look through your list of who's in your class. But you can create groups yourself based on skill, strengths, and personality. So you might want to mix up some groups depending on personality, skill level, or you might want to say, okay, I'm going to put everybody shy and everybody at low skill in this one group, and I'm going to put everybody outgoing and strong in this group. I'm going to put all the intermediates in this one. Or you might decide, you know, I think this person would be a really great researcher, and that's where they will grow. I'm going to put them in this group. This other person is kind of shy, but they're very strong, and so I want them to be the speech maker, the presenter. So you can decide to create a group like that. That will be, of course, more work than what you would do for just one day's assignment. But that is an option too. And you really have to know your students well. I would say this would be more for, you know, your higher level, your 10th, 11th graders, or your university students. And it would be for your smaller level classes, like maybe you have 15 students in a class, 10 or 15. And it would be kind of later in the semester. But it is labor intensive, but it is something you can do as well. So for group work, what can you do? So you can have different assignments for each group. So you can have them stationary, which means that they just stay and do the assignment. So you would, once you can separate them by skill and then say, okay, because these guys are a little bit weaker, because these are a little stronger, I'm going to give a different assignment for this group than for this group. And that's what they're going to work on for the day. And the students don't even need to know that you've given them based on different levels. You can just say, everybody's doing something different, and this is what you guys are doing, and they're not going to compare with each other. They won't necessarily know what the other ones are doing. Circuit means that you, just like the speed dating, the concentric circles, means that you have them, maybe there's an assignment or something to do at each, again, 4 is a good number. Maybe if you have a much larger class 5, but you will have like tables set up where they do a certain assignment there, and then they move to the next one. And then once they're done there, they move to the next one. And you can time this. Well, you'd have to time it because people won't be at the same one at the same time. You give like maybe 5-7 minutes for each table that they're at. They work on something. They try to do as many things there that they can. Running dictation is a fun one. So that one is where you have a story, a paragraph, a poem, something that is out in the hall, and then you have the students are inside, and then you have one person who is just the writer. And then the rest of the group alternates by running outside, reading a sentence from the story, then coming back in and telling the sentence to the person, and then they have to write it down. And the group at the end of class that has it done first and done correctly is the winner. So if you get it done first, but it's not correct, then they're not the winner. But if you take a little longer, you have everything correct, then you could be the winner if the first one didn't get everything correctly. Scavenger Hunt is, and so when you do running dictation with groups, it's really great to have people really aware of who the best like speller is, or if other people in the group can help with spelling, because you will have to have the one person that goes out will memorize what is written there, but then once they tell it to the person, they have to spell it correctly as they write it down. So they have to really remember it correctly, come back in, spell it correctly as they put it down. And you'll want a multi-level group for that assignment. You'll want it to be fair. So you want to have strong students and the weaker students and the intermediate students in each group for that one. And they get very cooperative because they want to win, right? Everybody if you have a competition assignment in class, the students are motivated to win. So they're motivated to work together and be peaceful. Scavenger hunt, depending on the age of your students, how much you're supposed to allow them out of class. This one can be a fun one. So I've given them things that they should take a picture of. So they run outside. Once they get a picture of the 15 things, and I don't say, go take a picture of a tree, because that's not challenging. They know what tree means, and then they know what a tree is. But if I say, take a picture of something arboreal, so that's a scientific description of something related to trees. Now they have to look up that word. They have to figure out that it's something with trees, and then they go have to find the tree. So that's a fun one. And when, I have them at this point, if I'm going to be doing something that advanced, I will tell them, you are not supposed to look up the word in a Kyrgyz dictionary or a Russian dictionary. You look it up in an English language dictionary. So you look up, even if you don't have the book of dictionary in the room, really encourage them to online Google meaning of arboreal or arboreal definition, and it'll give you the definition in English. I'll say, scientific terminology for something related to trees. There you go. Now they are reading that in English, they're digesting that in English, and now they're going to do something like that with English. So I have an example of something that I used for scavenger hunt before, and it was really fun. I had like all these higher level words of normal things that you will have around the campus, and then they have to learn. It's vocabulary building basically, and it's really fun. And when you have the students that are in multi-level groups, they're going to learn a lot. They're going to learn from the stronger students just by doing these kinds of things. Debates, I go on about debates all the time in these. I know I've mentioned them several times in different trainings. They come up again and again. But debates are great. It's a great way for students to really integrate critical thinking into their language skills. So finding something that they are interested in, that they really believe strongly in, or you can just create different things about, like I said, pop culture, social sciences, socioeconomics, politics, environment, any kind of thing, science debates, any kind of thing, legal, something that has to really do, it could be something global, it could be something very, very central. It could be like, something that is happening in their own village or city or oblast or something. But then having them research, putting them in, this is great when it's the ones that are like two groups in one class. One is for, one is against, depending on the size of your class. If you have a very large class, you'll want to break it into something small. But mix the levels of students there. And then again, they can have different roles. So one can be the researcher, one can be the writer, the timekeeper, the taking notes, the presenter. But we can go over like how to actually how to do debates. And I saw at some of the schools I went to, I actually served on the judging panel for who won a debate. And the Kyrgyz students are really good at doing this. When they're given the right, guidance for it, and they're practicing a lot, they were doing really well. I was very proud of them. They can create assignments for other groups. So you can all work together. The strong ones can make them for the weak ones, or the weak and strong together can make ones for the other weak and strong. but thinking like, okay, make a test, have them say, make a test on what we've been studying for the last 3 weeks. Make a practice test. And so they'll go through what they've done. It's a really great thing, not just for the test takers, and then they can switch tests, but for the test creators. They're really looking for what they think is the most important. They're doing review. That's one of my favorite ones. It's creating assignments for the other groups. And all you have to do is monitor. So this is one of the very low labor ones. Like I said, figuring out who is appropriate for different levels for making a group is like a high labor for you, but this is one of the low labors. All you have to do is make sure everybody is on task and give some kinds of guidance. Be like, okay, well, what do you think was most important for, chapter 1? Well, did you cover all the skills? What do you mean? Oh, what was speaking, listening? What are the other skills? Ask them, like encourage, them to be very thorough, and just like kind of walk around and monitor. Don't give answers, but then say, and also make it like very clear, like you want 10 questions, or you want 15 multiple choice questions, or you want like a blank gap fill or something like that. But creating assignments for other groups is a really great one to do. On the same line, lesson plans, mini teaching. So if they create their own lesson plans, you can tell them in groups to go ahead one page, and why doesn't your group do the introduction, and then the next group will do the presentation, and then the next one will do practice, and then the next one will give the production assignment. And again, if you can either do that with each group is at different levels. So you have like very beginners, maybe beginners will do one particular assignment, or you can have everybody mixed up and say, okay, I want you to give the next lesson to everybody else, and this is how you're going to do it. And of course, any kind of class presentation, advertisements, meaning, commercials like on TV, a pitch. We invented a new invention. We have a new invention, and we are trying to find somebody who will give us money to produce this invention. Any kind of skit using the target language. I know I've seen a lot of skits from Kyrgyz plays and stories. I've seen several ones from like Chingiz Aytmatov, and you can have them do something from a TV show or a music video or something. Riddles and thoughts and experiments. Those are all just, language things that you can do, things that are something that you have to figure out and talk about and discuss to see what people think are the right answer, or, have disagreements with that. I can go into that a little bit more if anybody's interested in the riddles and thought experiments kinds of things. And then individual work. So you will want to have an extension activity for people. If you are having a class that is based on individual work, extension activity means I've given everybody the same assignment. The strong students are done first. What do they do now? So you have to give them something else to do. So always have something else, like once you're finished with this, I would like you to do this. The books that I was using, the Oxford learning ones, were really good at this. They just kept going on. So they would say, once you're done with this, there's 2 other questions to ask. So always make sure, if you don't have those books, or if it's not provided in the book, or you don't think it's good enough for what your level is of your students, you can always create something on your own. Once you are done with this, can you write a paragraph about the topic, about how, if you're talking about the simple past or something. Once you're finished with the reading assignment, can you do this writing assignment, for example? Or if you're reading, okay, after you're done, can you go and circle all of the verbs? Or can you find out the origin of the new words? Are they Germanic, Latin, from a different language? I think it's important also to have the students especially at a high level, to understand like where the language comes from. And I love talking about the history of linguistics, historical linguistics. So if we're interested in that, I would like to present something on that. But yeah, always have something extra for individuals who are done early to do, rather than just, start on your homework, but an actual assignment to do in class that is related to the assignment that you're doing. You can turn them into a teacher's assistant. You can have them walk around, monitor, check other students' work. If you have a couple of strong ones that are done, and then you can go around and see if people are not as far along with some of the with the assignment, then they can kind of, again, encourage them not to just give the answers, but help them, guide them to the answer. They could look ahead in the book and create a lesson plan of their own. So they can, this is like the mini teaching I mentioned. So say, well, what would you do if you're really ready for, you're done, maybe you want to do the next level tomorrow, the presentation. Make sure that you are, really confident in that student's level of language, and also in their outgoingness too, if they are talkative. And I would also say vary the seating chart even for individual work, because people will naturally look over at others, naturally, ask questions of other students. So if you mix it up a lot and they're not just sitting next to people that they're used to sitting next to, or sitting next to the one that's like, oh, well, I know like this other person is just going to want to speak Kyrgyz with me the entire time, and like, kind of not pay attention to the work. But if you make it so that it's like, well, the teacher is in charge. Also, sometimes this is something to think about. Sometimes the students want to not sit next to their friends, but they feel like their friends' feelings will be hurt. And they actually feel like they get more done and they are more productive and learn more if they are not sitting next to their best friend. So if you give them the excuse of, the teacher actually put me here and it's not my choice not to sit next to you, the teacher said we had to sit here, this actually is a little bit easier for students sometimes, because now they're not under the pressure to make their friend feel like they're good with their friend. So if you choose the seating chart even for individual work, and you don't have to do it all the time. So that's what I was going to say. The next, remember to bring them back to their comfort zone. Let them choose partners and groups once in a while. So even though you are trying to get them to challenge themselves and, really step out of their comfort zone, every week or 2 weeks, just let them choose their own groups. Let them sit next to the people they want to sit next to, because it will feel like they have a little bit more control and a little bit more, it's just more fun to, they can look forward to it once in a while. It's like, I love to sit next to my friend in French class, or in Kyrgyz class also, and, mess around sometimes. But it was also like, sometimes I was like, oh, well, the teacher's putting us next to this person. Now I know I'm going to get a little bit more done. But then it was always fun to just sit next to my friend again, also, when I was allowed to. Even at age 38, everybody's, once you get to a language class and you are a child again learning the first language, I feel like your whole being kind of goes back to that. So it's nice to have fun with the child's mind again when you're in that space. So that works all the way to university and beyond as well. Okay, so that's it for the presentation aspect. And
thank you very much, Pamela. It was a very detailed presentation.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite. I know I say that every week, but it's one of my favorite themes to talk about, because we all have, I don't think anybody has not dealt with a multi-level classroom, right? We all have had classrooms where the students have very high level and then a very low level and then something in between, or different, like some of them are very strong with writing and then very weak with speaking. So anyway, so let's look at the questions. So most intermediate level learners try to make complicated sentences. How to engage them that you express your thoughts using simple but clear sentences is much better. I would say model it. So we are supposed to speak as little as possible anyway. So if you just make yourself clear, shortest sentence as possible with still being grammatically correct, but that will encourage them to answer in that way. So if you don't model that things are supposed to be very complicated, then you can have it be that, you know, when they answer back to you, I mean, you do want to have them, you know, push themselves. You know, we talk about the comfort zone. You do want to have them challenge themselves. Also, you know, with having the modeling in the practice level, the practice stage of the class, they shouldn't be trying to go beyond that too much. So if you really have the class where you have it very clear with the 4 stages of introduction, or you know, warm up, and then presentation, and then practice, and then production. The production should pretty much mimic the practice. So it shouldn't be too more complicated. If you give a really good practice where they are being modeled the kind of sentence that they're supposed to give, then the production when they are giving the sentence should be pretty close to that. So that's our goal. So American British tests are based on testing 4 skills, but how will we identify the level of students at the lessons? Should we observe only for their speaking or all the abilities? So I like to give a diagnostic test, even if it's not part of the curriculum. I give it at the beginning of class. I have them, each student talk to me, and that's part of the way that I get their names. And if I get to know something about them, then I get their names better, and then I get to know them as people. And that also tells me what their level is in speaking. And then I always also have them write something. So what you really need to test, I would say, at the beginning is like the productive skills. And that will kind of give you like, well, if this person is this high in speaking and writing, they're probably pretty good at listening and reading as well, because the production is always harder than the reception. If you have people that look very, very low on those, it might be good to actually give a formal test on the receptive skills also, because that could mean that they're a lot higher in those, because again, those are easy. And sometimes the teaching methods are a little bit more based on reading and listening. But yeah, you want to know all of them. So you can do a combination of informal and formal testing for those. Technique or method. Differentiated learning is, it could be called a technique or a method. There's not really a difference. We have so many different synonyms in English. It's pretty much the same. Through debating, we can enhance the interests of intermediate learners for speaking. A beneficial method and technique. Yes, absolutely. It's so debating, because they are no longer worrying about how they're saying something. They are worrying about the message that they are delivering. This is a great way to practice fluency, to get people just speaking. Their concern is not, oh, am I perfect in saying or am I repeating something? It's, I am getting my message across. Just like me and my Japanese roommate when I was studying in China, right? My issue was getting the message across. So that is very motivating. Absolutely. Yeah. And if it's something that they're interested in, all the much more, because they want the other students to know how they feel about it, especially at the age that, you know, any ages that we're teaching. When students are becoming who they are, whether it's adolescent or, older high school or university, and they want to let people know how they feel about issues in the world. So they're motivated to express that. Yeah, good point. Nowadays, teachers tend to provide classes on Zoom. How can we utilize debates or divide students into 2 groups online? Yeah, so hopefully we're going to be away from Zoom and back into classrooms very soon, but the breakout rooms are good. And then also if you have, so I don't know if you know how to do breakout rooms, but you put people in different groups. And then once you get back together in a big group, you can just say 2 people who are the speakers for each side can speak on behalf of the other ones. So in a breakout room, you can have like maybe 4 or 5 people in a smaller Zoom session. You can set it for like 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever. And then later you come back to the room. So it is possible. So if you look into how to use Zoom breakout rooms, you can do the same thing that you do in class. It's just like we're on a screen instead. Detailed information about productive skills. That is, so productive skills are just speaking and writing. Those are the 2 productive skills. So those are all very specific things that I could give workshops on in the future about certain things about speaking or certain things about writing. And I've given kind of general things about speaking and writing before, which I can do again. And informal test is, I wouldn't say test, informal assessment. So assessment is just that you're trying to find out what the levels of people are. So that's just in class. That's just noticing when somebody is speaking, are they there? Wow, that student is very, very high level. They're using all correct grammar. They're using sophisticated vocabulary. Or, oh, this person is talking about a lot of things and they have a lot of vocabulary, but their grammar can use a lot of help. So it's just noticing things as you are in class. That's informal. And that there's not really a test you give in that. That's the whole point of it being informal. Once it's written out and you have directives, then it's formal. Then there's a standard. But we can also talk about informal versus formal testing in the future if we like. And I've given ones on that already, and I can repeat it. So.
Okay, thank you,
everybody.
Just one question, and we'll finish.
Yeah. Sure.
Some teachers asks weak students to have additional classes like tutoring.
Yeah.
Or invites to come after the lessons or to stay after school. What do you think?
Yeah, if the teacher has the time and the ability to do that, that's wonderful. I think that would be great. I mean, everybody can benefit from supplementary exposure and to catch up with that. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I know sometimes it's harder because if you don't get paid for it or finding the time and people have families and everything. But best case scenario, if your weak students can come to extra classes and tutoring, then that's wonderful. Yeah, because you can find out exactly where they're struggling and what they need help with.
Okay. Thank you very much, dear participants. Thank you for your participation and the interesting questions. So I have written here, asked what topic do you prefer to discuss with Pamela next week. You can write here or you can write to my WhatsApp number. So Pamela, thank you very much for your interesting, useful presentation. So I hope we'll meet.
And thank everybody for showing up.
Yeah, next week.
Yes.
Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.